have Stephen C. Smith. And Stephen is from South Carolina, and he is a very good friend of the Lunch and Learn lecture series. But today he's going to talk about the BAMB Crater in South Carolina. Mr. Smith grew up next to the top secret nuclear city of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He visited there at the age of 10. As he was preparing to graduate from South Carolina High School, there was a shout from the television stating, "South Carolina has atomic bomb dropped on it." 49 years later, Stephen was living where the bomb dropped in Mars Bluff. As a result of living there, he became the co-chair of the 50th anniversary of the bomb drop. He is currently leading the efforts to formalize recognition of the BAMB Crater as a National Heritage Destination. So welcome, Stephen.
Thank you. All right, everybody should have a copy of the program. We're going to pretty much run through this and talk about it as we go, more or less in order. First off, I will point out that what has this got to do with American history? Well, yeah, this is a big part of American history. What does this have to do with historical Williamsburg, where I used to work, and colonial Williamsburg, and Jamestown, and the city of Henry? It's creator-based. The people that set up America had, the Bible said you had the creator and the redeemer, and they were co-equal. Today we've forgotten the creator part mostly, but at the time it was together. So I put out on the top of this page several creator-based verses. That's not church. This is not church stuff. Let's read them. In the beginning, the Word was God, and God made everything. That's a creation. There's no redemption in that at all. That's His creator. God made all nations, times, and places so that men would seek Him. That's what He made nations for, so men would seek Him. I came to fulfill the law until heaven and earth pass away. That's a big issue in today. Nailed the law to the cross, so we're not under the law anymore. But they asked Jesus that at the time, "Are you creating a new religion?" He said, "No. Don't think I came to abolish the law. I came to fulfill it. And it will always be here until there's a new heaven and a new earth." Well, there it is. And this one was used with the Declaration of Independence people, particularly, and we're celebrating that while we're doing these other things, because this is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. The Lord is our judge, the Lord is our lawgiver, and the Lord is our king. That's the three part. That's what American system of executive and judicial and legislative branches right out of this. It is He who will save us. It's self-evident. Everybody knows this, it says. And the Declaration of Independence includes this phrase. This surprised me the first time this was pointed out to me. The laws of nature and of nature's God. I thought we had separation between church and state, and all that religious language is in the church. And here's the Declaration of Independence, and it has the same language in it. That's what I'm talking about. These are all creator verse things. So, a bit about myself, because it's part of the story. I was born just before Pearl Harbor. By the way, that wasn't my fault, by the way, in case you want to know. I don't remember anything about World War II except a little teeny bit at the end when I was about 5 years old. And everybody was saying, "Yay, the war's over." And I said, "What you so happy about?" "Well, the war's over." So I said, "Yay, the war's over." I didn't know what that meant. So that was my introduction to the whole situation. Our little town in Tennessee, you got Charlotte, you got Asheville, you got the Smoky Mountains, you got the other side of the mountain, and you got ridge country over there. Sharp, smooth. And our town was the one that was building the first TVA hydroelectric plant in Norris, Tennessee. That's the name of the little town. It was on the smooth side, facing sort of southwest. The backside was a cliff. Right off our backyard was like a cliff. But 3 ridges over was Oak Ridge, the nuclear city. And I grew up with that. They put that together in the late 1930s to build the atomic bomb. Well, top secret. We knew stuff was getting ready to happen in World War II. We knew stuff's coming, it's coming, it's coming. And we had discovered some things about how to bust an atom up and get energy out of it, and that you could make bombs out of it that way. So they created this whole little town of Oak Ridge, little town. Well, when I was 10 years old, the war was over, the security was down. We didn't talk about Oak Ridge. I mean, that's one thing we did not say. Any kid that said anything about the words Oak Ridge or nuclear, man, you got in trouble. So we didn't say that. I can hardly imagine us not saying that today with anybody, but we didn't. We played. Some of the kids that were my playmates, dads worked there, but other people lived in Oak Ridge. So when I was 10 years old, my dad came to me and said, hey, they've opened the gates to Oak Ridge. You want to go see what's in there? Well, yeah, hey, we can finally say the word Oak Ridge, you know? And we drove over there once before, and it had the ridge came down, and it had a machine gun in place right there where the road came in. And we drove in, and there was pretty far away, had a little turnaround. People did, they drove in, turned around. And my dad said, waved to them, they had that machine gun aimed. It looked like the barrel was that big to me. But smile, be friendly, you know, tell me, hey, you know, like we were a threat, you know. So we did, we turned around, and that's my only contact with Oak Ridge directly, was seeing that machine gun emplacement there at the valley. So they opened the gates up. So we went in, got on a bus, and they drove us through the city of Oak Ridge, which had schools, 10 schools, elementary schools, and a junior high and a senior high school. Movie theaters, bowling alleys, swimming pools, grocery stores, houses. I said, man, who knew? It was kind of overwhelming, even to me at this point, to man, how did we not know these people were there? 75,000 people lived in Oak Ridge at its peak. Can you imagine that? And nobody knew they were there? They were behind the barbed wires on these ridges. They weren't pinned in. They could leave if they wanted to. There were security questions. If you leave, I want to be sure you watch what you say out there. But they were not kept in there. They volunteered, and they worked hard, and they worked their job, didn't know what anybody else was doing. They worked their job. Everybody had their own thing. Really secret. And they were collecting enough the uranium and plutonium, which was very hard to do. It's kind of hard to describe how much effort it takes to get a little pile of nuclear stuff. It's so scattered. You got to mix it up, kind of suck it out, refine that. It takes years. That's what Iran is doing today. That's what they're saying, that they've got almost enough or have enough to make some nuclear weapons over there. And we're saying to him, no, you can't have that. But that's a whole different issue, but it's the same process. So that's what they were doing in Oak Ridge. It started out in New York as the Manhattan Project, but that's right downtown New York. You can't get secret out of that. It's not big enough, you can't expand. So they said, we need a bigger place. So they went to Chicago and connected up with a stadium, an outdoor stadium that was not being fully utilized, blocked off part of it, and underneath the seats, they built the nuclear research part. And they achieved the first full, deliberate, controlled nuclear power in that place in Chicago. But you still can't get so big, you can't test anything, you're just in downtown Chicago. So they made it two things. They said, we need a place to collect the uranium and the plutonium, and they chose Tennessee, East Tennessee. You can't get there from the Atlantic Ocean. You can't get there from the Pacific Ocean. We're getting ready to have a war, probably, and that's about as makes it obscure as you can get it. The people that did live there were few and far between. They moved them out, bought their house and stuff, but these were country people too. So they just moved out, and then the city got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. When we got into the actual war preparation, like I say, thousands of people lived in this place. And so we also went not just where the people lived, but into the part where they were doing the actual building and connecting of the nuclear stuff. That was big buildings back in there. And that was pretty impressive. I'll say this, one of my takeaways, now I was a 10-year-old kid, all right? And I was cynical already. They said it was free. I didn't believe that. Nope, nothing's free. So we stopped for a while, got off the bus, and we were just standing there. And the tour guide looked at me and said, "Hey, kid, you got a dime on you." I said, "Here it comes." Thereafter, I had one, that's my money. I had one dime to my name, and he wasn't going to get it. No, they said this was a free thing, no. And he saw my face. He said, no. See that machine right over there? And it looked like a 4-drawer file cabinet. That's my recollection, about that same size. And I looked at it and I said, "Yeah, here it comes." He said, "See that little slot at the front, up toward the, like about right here?" I said, "Yeah, here it comes." He said, No. He said, no. And I about squeezed my dime. I must have made that dime cry. I was squeezing that. They ain't getting my dime. And he said, "No, see that little slot part way down below that, about a foot below that?" "Yeah." He said, "Well, you put your dime in there, and it comes right back out at the bottom." "Well, what's the point of that?" He said, "The point is, it will be radioactive when it comes out at the bottom, and you can have your dime back." They were giving away radioactive coins. You had to provide the coin, but they would have made it radioactive. And so, man, my dime went in that thing so fast, boom, boom, and it came out in this little thing. That's the same dime. 75 years ago, got that little dime radioactive. You take it over to the Geiger counter, and it buzz like mad. You come, buzz. And after 2 or 3 days, little buzz, after 2 or 3 weeks, you didn't do nothing. But nobody had a Geiger counter at home, so what you gonna do with a dime that's radioactive? I don't know. You got it. American Museum of Nuclear, something it says on here, I forgot what it says. American History of Nuclear Atomic Energy. So they forgot that, and then we got right into the Korean War. They slammed the gate shut, and I've never been in there since. We've been doing all kinds of stuff, of course, since that, and we've all probably heard of Oppenheimer and that kind of stuff out in Los Alamos, where they were actually testing it. I don't want to talk too much about that because that's a separate issue, but except to say he knew that area. He grew up out there in the West, horse riding and stuff in Los Alamos. And so he knew, he said, there's nothing out there. I mean, this is miles of nothing but rocky stuff. So we could put it out there, put our research people out there and build a whole thing equivalent of Oak Ridge, except we're going to put it together. Not just collect it, but put it together and test it, which is what they did out there. So eventually I ended up in South Carolina. Went to 5 different high schools, ended up in one in Chester, which is about halfway between Columbia and the center of South Carolina and Charlotte, North Carolina, a little mill town. And I was just getting ready to graduate. I mean, it was like from here to the front door, and that's all I had. Finally going to get out of high school. I was getting tired of high school too. I did not like history, especially did not like history. And the teacher that was a history teacher knew that, and she didn't like me, I didn't like her, and we had several, I'm not proud necessarily to say, but some discussions about this. And anyway, I was looking to get out of high school, and I could see the graduation right there, and all of a sudden the TV blares out, "Atomic bomb dropped on South Carolina." What, are we all going to die now? That was our thought. And friend said, no, it wasn't around here. It wasn't around here. It was a different place. Well, where was it? It's in a place called Mars Bluff. Well, where is that? That's on the other side of Florence. Well, where is that? I didn't know where that was either. It's on I-95, by the way, just a little bit east of 95. And we waited to find out how quickly we were going to die, just the same. And they said, no, the assurances came. There was no nuclear stuff in it. It was the trigger unit that would have set the nuclear stuff off, but they didn't have the nuclear part in the plane. Well, we were all cynical. We didn't believe that. We just said they're going to let us die here. So anyway, for about 3 days, all in the news. Probably some of y'all remember that wherever you were at this point. This was 1958. All y'all kind of younger than that, most it looks to me like, but so we forgot about it. After 3 days, enormous news about it, and it just faded away. They didn't talk about it anymore. And I ended up focusing on graduation, graduated and stuff. And 49 years later, I ended up living in Mars Bluff. Mars, M-A-R-S, that's the family name. Bluff had to do with the PD River. It's actually a bluff there, but the Mars Bluff community is a farming community. There's no really a town center. It's just farm, big farm, very productive farms, and they work hard all the time. And they say, you know, if you like to eat, thank a farmer. And if you like to read, thank a teacher. And so here I am living in Mars Bluff. I said, I remember that name, Mars Bluff. That's where that nuclear bomb thing was. Whatever happened about that? I asked somebody, and he said, yeah, crater's still here. Really? What, can you go to it? Yeah. Well, where is it? Well, it's, you know, so I went down there and looked around, and they said, no, it's over here. So I went over there, looked, no, they said, it's over here, it's over here. I looked, I must have covered the whole east coast of America looking for this thing. I couldn't find it anywhere. Everybody knew where it was that it wasn't. And I finally got the name of the nephew of the guy whose property the bomb fell on. And he said, can you find my house? He told me where it was. Yeah, it's on a curve. There's a house right there. He said, that's where I live. And I was 10 years old when that happened, and I'm living in the same spot. We got a different house, but it's the same spot. Come to me and I'll take it to you. It's right next door. Right next door, right here. Right. So I was running everywhere. You go, there it is. It's easy to find. If you know where it is. It's not marked. It has no signs. Has no signs on the highway. The beach is on the way to the Francis Marion University is now out there also on this side of the highway. The atomic bomb crater is on this side behind some houses in a field, in a clump of trees. And the crater rim is about half the size of the depth of this thing here. So, and the trees and bushes and other little trees and bushes. And you can't see it if you don't know where it is. So I said, well, at this point, I had already been up here to Virginia, worked at Jamestown, and worked in Colonial Williamsburg. I was doing continuing education in history, and had started this college. By the way, this is the first college in America, 1619. The year before the Pilgrims came over here to found America, we had a college going up on the James River, right up the river from here, the city of Henricus. And I was working at Jamestown. This is part of the story. I wanted to see why we said John Smith and Pocahontas had a romance. None of us believe that's true there. But we said that. That's what we said every day. People, and it's like, why do we say that? That's what people want to hear. They come here to hear the romance, and it's wonderful. Yeah, but it isn't true. I want to see what did they actually say about why did they come to Jamestown. Well, we don't have the records. They had the Civil War in England, tore them up. Civil War over here, tore them, whatever was left of it's torn up. We have no records anywhere of what actually they said about it. And I couldn't believe that. I'm stunned that anybody really could believe that America, as important as it is in this world, doesn't have a shred of original documents that said to come settle Jamestown. Some kind of charter, the Jamestown Charter is what we were looking for. 1607 Jamestown Charter. So I got kind of about half mad about it, and I started looking. I went to every estate sale, antiquarian bookstore. I looked everywhere, and I did for a whole year. Every day I had a day off. I was out looking. No. I got so tired of hearing no. I got sick of that. And I went to every place there was except for one library, a big one in the city of Newport News, which is just in from Norfolk. And I was driving by and I looked at that and I said, I'm not going in there. I can't stand to hear anybody tell me, no, we don't have the charter for Jamestown anymore. And then I had the thought, if you don't go in there, guess where it will be that you will find out 10 years later you could have had it all that time. I said, oh man. All right, so I peeled and went in there, went up into the reference section, and I just about turned around and left, and the nicest little old lady came up to me and she said, sir, can I help you find something? And she meant that. It was not an imposition on her. This is what she did. She liked to help people find stuff. And that kind of startled me because I was about half mad. I didn't want to talk about this anymore. And I said, if I tell her no, it will hurt her feelings. And I'm not exactly what you call a gentleman, but I was gentleman enough to say, I don't want to, this is a nice lady. She's trying to help. So I said, well, I'm looking for the 1607 Jamestown Charter. And she cocked her head one side and disappeared, and I could hear her clicking through. I could hear her brain ticking. Tick, 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 tick. She was going through the stacks in the library. She went through every library in the whole world, I think. She did. I still think I could hear her ticking. Am I hearing her? I don't know, but it seemed like I am. And finally she came back and said, well, we don't have that. We've never had that. And I don't have anywhere to recommend that you go that might have it. I'm sorry. Well, I thought, okay, at least I got final. There isn't anywhere else to look. If I couldn't find it for that whole year, I did this kind of stuff. If I can't find it for that, then we don't have it. So I thank you, and I turned to leave, and she said, however, you know, when I said, I'm in trouble. I don't know. She said, we do have something called the Virginia Company Records, 1606. Would you like to see them? Well, I knew Virginia was bigger in those days than it is now. But I didn't want to look at, I didn't care about Virginia. I wanted to see Jamestown. That's where I was working. That's where our arguments were about Pocahontas and all the stuff that we made up about American founding. So I said, okay, all right. She said, well, have a seat, and I'll bring them to you. Them. So she brought out a book, 8.5 by 11, 3 inches thick, put it down on front of me. Said, there's more. She brought another one. There's more. She brought another one. Said, there's one more. So I had a stack of books that high, that big, of primary source records on the Virginia Company, 1606. And I said, I'll never read through this the whole rest of my life, probably. So to make her happy, I opened the title, and there is this thing that says, the authorization for them to come over and settle along the James River. They didn't call it that, but to settle in Virginia and go up the river. They didn't say anything about Jamestown. There was no Jamestown. There never was a Jamestown Charter of 1607. No wonder we couldn't find a thing. There's never been one of those. We've made that story to center on Jamestown since the 1890s. I didn't know that at the time, but the people that got hold of the 300th anniversary in 1907 made the whole story about them and picked John Smith to represent them, and they've been pumping him and said, we're going to take over Virginia like we should be the natural rulers of Virginia. And they did that and pumped it, and they did take over Virginia, and they ran it for about 70 years and talked all about Jamestown. The heroic John Smith led them over here and all that stuff. So I was looking at the record. However, it didn't say anything about John Smith in here. It said they came over, they were authorized to come. That's what they call Virginia. The whole thing. The whole thing over here was called Virginia. Named after Queen Elizabeth I, the Virgin Queen. And they were coming over here and this is 34 degrees, 45 degrees, halfway to the North Pole. Look at it. You know what's out there? Pacific Ocean, the west coast of Virginia. How you like that? Now this is before they came over here. This is what they were looking at. And you know what's right here at the bottom in that corner? Big city. What do you think that is? Los Angeles. Los Angeles, Virginia. How you like that? And up here is about the middle of Oregon. And this is the territory they had. They didn't know how far it was. They didn't know who was in here. They didn't know about the mountains and plains. Some people thought it was only this far anyway. But this is, when you put it on a map, it doesn't look the same as you just read latitudes. I mean, that's like history to me. That's boring. So anyway, when I saw that map, I saw a little version. We printed this big map. Oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. All right. Well, I don't want to talk all about Virginia stuff, but that got me into continuing education, historical interpretation. It came alive to me while I was at Jamestown. All of a sudden, I had to apologize to my history teacher, who didn't live anymore, but whatever. I go to high school reunions. They still remind me of what the teacher called me. Flippant. Here's my flippant student. I was too, smart aleck. Anyway, I'm not now. I'm just, I won't say what. Never mind. All right, that's how I got into this. And when I came from Virginia to South Carolina, living in Mars Bluff. And I'd been doing programs on history cruises on the river from Hopewell and from Jamestown and from the other marinas on the river for several years. Pretty exciting. I loved doing that. It was very, very fun. Learned about this college, and when they would, I'll say this much. When I took those records into Jamestown, they got mad. You'd think that's what we've been looking for 70 years. Thank you. How'd you get hold of them? I said, well, some little lady shoved them in my face. Said, here it is. And well, here it is. But they said, don't bring that stuff in here. What do you mean? This is the real stuff. We could build a real program, a real interpretive program on what they actually did. And we've got their words written down and copied. Don't bring those records in here. What do you mean? So we had some exchanges of high-level volume things about that. I said, I don't understand why you object to this. So I got mad and I quit Jamestown, and I learned that this college had existed, and I got a kind of a college background anyway. So I said, I know what I'll do. They won't do it at Jamestown. I will get this stuff known. And so how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to bring this college back into existence, which we did. It's been 35 years now. I had no idea how you do that. We're the first college in America. How do you bring back something like that? They did not do college in those days the way we do today. By the way, this is another important thing. You notice it says how they spell college? People say, oh, you can't even spell college. What kind of college is that? No, this is how you're supposed to spell college. We've dumbed it down about 200 years ago. That doesn't look right to me anymore. This does. The root word of college is the same as the root word of knowledge. The two go together. College and knowledge go like that. They used to. And now we've got all the sport teams, and we've got all kinds of everything in the world, business things that have nothing to do with just acquiring and developing knowledge. So we dropped the D. Scared me to death when I put the D back in there. I said, people are going to say, you don't even know what you're talking about. And I did not put it in there the first year. And everybody, oh, how many majors do you have? Dormitories, how many football teams you got? I said, no, we don't do any of that. They didn't do any of that. We're doing it the same way they did it. We're pretty close to it. And but I was sitting then I took 15 minutes, I'd take 13 saying, we don't do this, don't do that, and we do this little bit. And I said, I'm not going to spend the rest of my life with that proportion. It's got to be this way, not this way. So I took a deep breath and I put the D in there and published it and looked at the people in the eyes when they read that. And they looked at that D and they looked at it and they went back and forth and said, what is this? That's what I want to talk about, what it is, not what it's not. So we don't have degrees. They did not have degrees. They didn't have fraternities. They had, well, it's going to take too long to describe that, but it's a special thing. I brought it back. We've used this to publicize the Virginia charters and the whole planning of America, and we've been to the General Assembly a bunch of times, and they've agreed with us every time we've been there. Matter of fact, that's a whole nother issue. I need to get back to the BAMB Crater, but this is part of the story, though, and that's why I was in it. We're coming on the 50th anniversary of the BAMB Crater. We got to commemorate this, not celebrate it, commemorate it. And that's what we were doing. And I got with the Historical Commission in Florence, South Carolina, the city-county thing, and said, we got to do this. And the lady said, okay, let's do it. So we put together the thing. We had the 50th anniversary in 2008. 123 people came. They were almost all from right there on the farms right around the crater. They didn't say anything to anybody else about it. I didn't know the people because I wasn't from Mars Bluff, but my chairman was. So she went with my son and a video camera, and they interviewed them one after another. Where were you what were you doing at the, et cetera? Said, well, I was watching the edge of night on the couch with my mama. Just got home from school and blew us into the floor with what happened? And, but it was a big bomb. Tremendous bomb, 10 foot 6 inches. You can see a picture of it on the inside. It doesn't look very big there, but it's called a Fat Man nuke. You see it on its side. But that's 10 foot 6 inches tall, which it would be from this floor. That's got to be about close to 10 feet, 9 feet if it is. 6 foot around, big bomb on its side. Carried on the B-47. That's what fell, and that's what we'll talk about the rest of this pretty much. But this was like the one that we dropped on Nagasaki, except this one was twice as powerful. Same size physically. They built the B-47 to carry this one bomb. They started with the bomb, they knew how big it was, and they built the plane around it to carry that. That's what the B-47 was. So after the war, the Second World War, we divided Europe up. France had part, we had part, Britain had part, and Soviet Union, since they participated with us as they had the part of it. And they right away started violating the agreements that they would look out for the people that they were taking care of. Their section. They just rolled tanks in there, arrested people, they shot them, put them in these gulags in Siberia, and they would, we said, hey, we did not fight the Nazi socialists. That's what that means, the Nazis is National Socialism. For you Soviet socialists to take over and do the same thing or worse than the Nazis were doing. No, we don't do that. We're America. We don't shoot our prisoners, for instance, and we don't, all the kind of stuff. And they just stood there and said, what you going to do about it? Well, that's a real question. They said they were going to continue to do that, and they were going to take over the world, including America, too. That's what they said. And we said, no, you're not. Well, how are you going to stop us? And we had, at that point, we were the only people that had a nuclear weapon. And we started making them already. And we had the B-47, cranked them up, and we flew them toward the Soviet Union in the Cold War. So this is the Cold War bomb scar on American soil. And so they said, what you going to do about this? See that little gray dot up there with the little white smoke contrails coming your way? Yeah. Well, that's a B-47. It's got one nuclear bomb on it, twice as powerful as the Soviet Union, as Nagasaki. And see that one down there? And see that one down there? See that one down there? Susan, come on up here and hold up the map. I'm getting onto that map. And as far as you could see, we had B-47s flying toward, and around this way too, clear on around underneath Greece. We got a map here, you can kind of, that's all right, just leave it down there. Let's hold it up. Right here's where we were, right there. And this is the Soviet Union, and they were doing stuff, and we flew up from here across to England, and we had B-47s coming in, 24/7, loaded. Each one had an armed nuclear weapon going toward the Soviet Union with instructions for their target and 2 alternatives, and with knowing that if we don't call you back, we SAC, Strategic Air Command, if we don't call you back from going to the Soviet, go in and bomb wherever. All of it. And if one of you goes, all of it. There's 100 of them in the air coming at one time. 100 of them. And another 100 on the ground coming up to relieve them if we called them back, or if they went, then the second 100 would come right behind them. And we had another 100 on the ground that was being worked on and days off and repaired and stuff. 325 or 30 B-47s. I was surprised at that. I didn't know we had that many B-47s ever in the whole world, but we had that many flying to the Soviet Union, just flying. It was coming in like this. And the Soviet Union stopped advancing. They dropped the Iron Curtain, Berlin Wall and stuff, but they did not come any farther than that. So the one that I'm talking about came from down here in Savannah, Georgia, just west of Savannah. The bombs are underground. They come up on a little trolley, and they dig a hole, put the bomb partway underground, back to B-47, up over, and hook the chains up and pull that bomb up and to hook it to the plane. And the plane squats, of course, because that thing weighs 7,000 pounds. And then they take off. Another one come in, bring another bomb up. And we were doing that all the time. And we still have the bases in England, by the way. But we had this thing surrounded. And you can imagine, we put the whole entire world at risk of nuclear warfare against the Soviet Union because they're evil. They kill people, just kill them. They surround, kill. And they killed prisoners, all kinds of stuff like that. And we said, no. And we said, no, we backed it up with our muscle. So this went on. I remember the Cold War, and I remember once in a while there was an article about B-47s or something in the Soviet Union, but I didn't have any idea until I really got into looking at this crater thing that there were so many of them, and it was so prolonged, and if we had sent those planes in there, we'd have turned the Soviet Union into glass, green glass. And there were people here on the America that said, we better do that now, because if we don't, they will end up with nuclear weapons too, and then we're going to have trouble stopping them. Well, we didn't smash them. I don't know if that's better or not. How that ends up remains to be seen. But on this, yeah, okay, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, one of them coming over up the East Coast. That's Savannah up the East Coast. Like here's the Atlantic Ocean in Florida down here in New York. They came up over, and they come up over here too. And any day of the week, still, there at Mars Bluff, I go out there and I look and I see I saw 8 jet trails when I was there the other day. Not all in sync, but it was one and one and one and one. And then a big B-52, big, but I could see the plane. So that thing had, oh man. And they fly all the time. I don't know where they're going. They don't tell us. That's the military stuff. Probably connected with this though, but wherever they're going on the East Coast, this is the flyway. And like I say, right here is, I don't really know if they got to go out over the oceans right here. They don't come over here. We would have too much talk about it if they were flying over us here or Richmond, because then you got to go around Washington, D.C., and they don't want any bomb planes anywhere near Washington. Anyway, they were coming over, and the most dangerous time for a flight is when they land or when they take off. What do you think? When they take off. You'd think it'd be the landing, but it isn't. It's when they take it off. Everything that's ever going to be on that plane is on it. It's heavy as it's going to be. The fuel is on there. The crew is on there. The cargo is on there. All this, everything's on it. And squatting down, the tires are squatting. And they try to go down the runway to get that thing up. And the engines are going just wide open. And if they're going to brake, that's when they're going to brake, the engines. So they've made the runways longer and longer and longer because they're heavier and heavier. It takes a long time to get those bombers up. But from the ground up to about 3,000 feet, that's the danger zone. And you get up there, finally, you can level out a little bit and slow the engines down and just cruise, and then you probably define the rest of the thing. But every bomber that takes off, every little plane too, for that matter, it's the most dangerous time is taking off. But we're talking here about B-47s with a live atomic bomb on there. So they made a rule that you cannot fly over U.S. territory with a live bomb in the plane. The core, that's what took Nagasaki down. Can you imagine that little thing? Just look at that. That had enough power when we split it to take down a whole giant city. Hiroshima, the same thing too. Still, that's about the size they are now. And this is not radioactive, by the way, so y'all people don't have to lean back. I was tempted to accidentally drop it, like, oh no. I was in a presentation one time and somebody did that, scared me to death. He dropped this piece of nuclear stuff that wasn't, anyway. So the question is, with weight, the problem is that big plane has got all that weight on it, and if you have the engines quit, you're coming down. And you're coming down quicker than you want to because you still got all that weight on, and you're trying to turn this plane and get back flying upwind and downwind, which is the backwards weight of land, and hope you make it. If you don't get rid of that weight, you don't have time to drop the fuel. And the only thing you can do is drop that bomb. So when they hook this thing up, it goes up and hooks into a little click thing like that. And it squats the plane down and takes off. And then the weapons sergeant gives it, this is your problem now, pilot, you sign. And I'm going back with my bombs all under the ground here. And so they take off. But if they have trouble, they want to be able to drop that bomb like that. And it has a pin in there. It's a pin about the size of my arm. We call it a pin. But it goes in there so that when the bomb hits turbulence in the air when they're flying, it won't bounce off that thing and drop accidentally. So it holds that pin in there. It's not particularly strong, but it keeps the thing in place. So what they do when they take off, they pull that pin out. It takes a machine to pull it out. And they take off with the thing just barely hanging in there. And they take it off. And if they have trouble, they'll drop that bomb right down there on the runway. Every runway, every Air Force base in America, probably in the world, has pock marks all on it where they've dropped these bombs. It's not every day, it's not all the time, but they've dropped enough of them, and all of a sudden the plane, whoo, you got 7,000 pounds left to worry about, you can make it, maybe make it back. Some do, some don't. That happens, that's just part of the thing. So in this case, they were taken off, they had the pin out, and they got up to altitude, and they pushed the button, and the pin would not go back in there. It wouldn't do it. It was bent or something, and it was just hitting pushing that button, and it says red light. And they said, oh man, what are we going to do? They said, well, we can't fly with this thing. We're not flying over the United States with this bomb barely hanging in here. We're not going to do that. They'd court-martial us if something happened, whatever. So they had the pilot and the co-pilot, and in the front of the plane is the navigator, and they told him, said, look, you're going to have to go back there and put it in place manually. Okay, so they depressurized the plane, put oxygen on, and he couldn't, and he tries to go through this little door. You've seen these submarine things where you go through the little door like that, it kind of climb. Well, you can't bring your parachute through there. So he had to stand in here, drop his parachute, still got the oxygen, climbing in there. Here's this big bomb that's on its side. He's up near the nose of it, and he could see where the pin is, but he can't quite reach it. Can't quite, it's 6 foot in diameter, and it's probably about a foot off the floor, and it's about another foot up above that's where the pin is. Well, and it's slippery. You look at the pictures of this, and you can see there's nothing, hardly anything on it. It's kind of smooth. It's not slippery exactly, but there's no toe hold. He's trying to get this, trying to reach it. And finally says, dang, we're going to have to abort this whole entire thing and go back to our base in Georgia or something, and that's going to mess up the whole. It's a very complicated, with 300 B-52s and bombs and all that maintenance and all. It's a very complicated thing about how you move them and do. So he said, man. So he's trying to reach up here, trying to grab, there's nothing, and there's a cable running across the top, and he reaches up and grabs that cable and pulls, and that's the cable that released the bomb. So he pulled that, the bomb fell. The bomb trigger. The nuclear part was not in the plane. How did I know that? One of our guests at the 50th anniversary was the weapons sergeant that loaded that bomb on the plane. I don't know how we found this man, or he found us maybe, but we said, you're on the program. Can you talk about this? Yeah, he said, that's old technology that you can find in Encyclopedia Britannica. You can find more about that than we knew. And today, it's pretty simple. So he said, well, come, you're on the program. So he spoke. He said, we did not put as a routine matter, we did not put the nuclear thing in the plane with the trigger. So it did not have that. And he said, people say that. There's more videos about how this bomb happened, Mars Bluff thing. You can look that up on YouTube and stuff, by the way. Some of those are accurate. Some of them are partly accurate. Some of them are made up, like, I don't know. So anyway, the bomb fell. And of course, the bomb bay doors are streamlined. They're not strong, but they're streamlined. So when that thing hit it, it just kind of opened up and stayed open. And you got 350 mile an hour wind coming in there. 15,000 feet they'd reached, coming up over South Carolina, up over to eastern South Carolina. And it's hanging on for dear life, and the bomb falls out, and the things are spring-loaded, so they shut. And he's standing there, I don't know how long. You can imagine, he almost went with it. And it's never been clear what he said or how long it took him to settle down, but he's you can imagine his pulse is, oh man, and then bam, you hear this big bam. Oh, well, they didn't know if they killed a bunch of people. They didn't know what happened. But the plane lurches up and the bomb falls out, and he's standing in there. And finally, he gets the courage to touch the floor. The floor's fine, and he has to let go. That's fine. And he goes back through that door and comes back out into the cockpit area, and he's going along beside the co-pilot and the pilot, and he grabs his sleeve. Hey, we lost the bomb. Like, wow, yeah, man, we thought you went with it, man. He said, I thought I did too. He said, well, what happened? Never mind, we got to report it. Absolutely, we got to report it. More reporting goes on with atomic weapons than you can shake a stick at. So they called Charleston, South Carolina, Air Force Base, and they got hold of a new guy. And he said, the term, by the way, there are 3 terms for nuclear incidents. One is a bent spear, like if you're bringing the things up out of on the little trolley, pull them on the tractor, and you have a flat tire or something, It doesn't happen, nothing blowing up, but that's still a nuclear weapon, and you got to record it and report it, and all kinds of things. If it rolls off, doesn't blow up, nothing happened, it wasn't about to blow up, they still got to report it. The next one is up, it's called a broken arrow. That's where we get BAMB from, B-A-M-B, broken arrow. That's if the thing does blow up without the nuclear part in it, but that trigger unit is a big bomb. I mean, it's bigger than any other bomb we did in World War II by itself, except for the nuclear things. And so that's BAMB, broken arrow. The third category is self-explanatory. If you hear that, you'll know what we're talking. Nuke flash. That's, we've never had a nuke flash anywhere in America. We've had plenty of accidental things, but not a nuke flash, which is on private property, accidentally dropped, and the nuclear part went off. So this was a broken arrow. So they reported broken arrow. They gave the identification of the plane, and in detail, in code, sort of, and we want to report a broken arrow. And the guy said, a what? A what? Bro, what are you talking about? I said, my God, we've dropped a nuclear bomb on somebody, and we can't even report it? Man, what kind of, oh man. So they finally broke radio silence, called the Florence airport, the civilian airport, which used to be a military base too, but then they give me the tower. So they hooked them up to the tower, and they talked to the guy in the tower. Would you please call Hunter Air Force Base in Georgia, speaking, anybody can listen to this, okay? You had to be really careful what you're talking about, because people listen to these planes talk all the time, particularly enemies. And so call them and give them our number and say, we have lost a device. He said, okay, so he called, got on the phone, called them. And Hunter Air Force Base could reach the plane. So they reached him by air, by radio, and then they said, come home immediately, take a few pictures. They were flying, circling, take a few pictures, and get back here and land, and we'll tell you what to do. Well, they knew the drill. They knew what happened to that. They're going to be, oh man, they got to explain this. Their careers probably are over. They didn't know if they killed people. They didn't know but they had to fly back to Hunter Air Force Base, landed. When they pulled over into the air, they got down out of the plane. They were met with machine guns, submachine guns. You get in that van and go there. You get in that van and go there. And you get in that van. And they interrogate them to compare the stories. It was a simple story. And it wasn't, but they didn't know. These guys go crazy? Was this sabotage? Was this an accident? What happened? Well, they satisfied them. I mean, the story is, simple. Curtis LeMay, you may remember the name of, was head of Strategic Air Command. He basically created Strategic Air Command, and he was a warrior. And he was one of those that wanted to fight Soviet Union. Just get them now. And anyway, he selected every single pilot, every single co-pilot, every single navigator, and most of the mechanics and all the other kind of people that went. He knew everybody about everything. He's the only general that we know of that ever got down on his hands and knees and crawled up in a wing and looked at this bolt, named whatever it was, to see how it wore or didn't wear, and was it dangerous, didn't it be replaced? And he did that kind of stuff. That's pretty interesting. He's the only one that still, as far as I know, that's ever done that. And this is very personal for him. So he called up the Hunter Air Force Base from wherever he was, put my pilot on the line. So he said, call him. They knew him, he knew them, he knew what he saw. Tell me what happened. Gruff, more gruff than I just did. Tell me what happened. And so the pilot told him, and he said, and he understood everything he said fit. He knew exactly what bolts and what went down, what with that cable. He know all that stuff. Yep. He said, okay, give me back to the switchboard. And they put him back in. He said, turn my boys loose. Slam the phone down. That's the way he operated. Well, he couldn't do that because this is a nuclear investigation. You still had to find out about it. But that's how he was. And they turned him loose. They concluded that this was there should not have been a cable that anybody could grab. He should not have been able to grab that and pull it and set. That shouldn't have been. That's a design flaw. It wasn't his fault. Said anybody would have done that. And it shouldn't have blown up when it hit the ground. The nose on that bomb would hit the ground and blew up. So they redid that, made it so it wouldn't be just a heavy weight falling down. Quickly, they grounded all the B-47s all over the whole world. And continued right on. 3 days later, they just talked about whatever. So we're trying to make this into a National Historic Site. My co-chairman has passed on, so I'm about the only one that's doing anything. The local people don't care about it. We've heard so much about that bomb, we don't want to talk about it. And they don't know anything about anything but the crater. And I said, no, there's a whole backstory, which I don't have time to get into here today, but how many people survived Nagasaki? Did you know that? How many people survived Hiroshima? More people survived those than were killed in them. That was a surprise to me. As the city, it ripped up the downtown part, and we see those videos over and over and over and over and over, and we don't see the zoom out, and the city is 350,000 people. At the very edge of Hiroshima, they didn't even hardly know something happened. I mean, it was big, but it was, okay, same thing in Nagasaki, big city. And they both recovered after the war quick. They're both fine. The news media was saying this ruined Hiroshima. It's going to be radioactive for 150 years. Kill everybody. Well, it didn't say radioactive more than a couple of weeks. Anyway, so we're trying to get this set up. We call it BAMB Crater, B-A-M-B. I say it's Broken Arrow Mars Bluff. I was looking for a one-word grabber that I could use to this Mars, Broken Arrow Mars Bluff. I couldn't say that. You can't make a word out of that, you know. And other words are longer and more. So I stood all down, walked around the other side of the page, looked at it upside down and backwards. Broken Arrow Mars Bluff. Bam! I said, whoa! I had happy feet for about 10 minutes. Man, it sounds like what had happened, and it looks like what happened. And people tell you all the time, oh, you mean BAMB Crater. No, I mean the BAMB Crater. And this is the only one ever, like I say, in the world that ever had those characteristics. Private property, accidental, the trigger unit blew up, nobody was killed. We've got plenty of other different things that happened, but Soviet Union's got no private property. Japan was not an accident. Other ones that fall did not blow up, like this one did. And we've got tourists coming in here all the time, hunting for it, hunting, driving slow, trying to find it. They drive right by the thing, they can't see it, they don't know what it looks like. But we've got pictures of it. We've got a model of the bomb. If they do find it, they stand in front of this bomb, 10 foot 6 inches, and stand there looking like, hey, they get down in the crater. Sometimes it's wet, sometimes it's dry. Most right now it's been dry for seemed like 100 years, but maybe it rained on it again. I don't know about that, but we're trying to turn it into a national visitor center as a portal to the nuclear age. Stuff's happening so fast, and you know this as well as I do. Every day you turn on television, there's a whole new thing coming out, I can't even think of the words, they're coming out so fast. I don't know what half those words mean, neither do most of it. If you had chemistry or physics in high school, man, that's old stuff, old tech now. And it's coming up. So we're saying, well, let's use the crater as a portal to introduce people to the new age of nuclear age, which we're not new age philosophy, the new age thing. I'm gonna sum this up about as quick as I can here. I was trying to figure what to say to open one of our meetings with prayer. And I had just been reading about George Washington Carver. You know who I'm talking about, right? Slave. His daddy died before he was born. His mama was a slave. She went somewhere and he went somewhere. And the war ended and he was a young man. Some family took him in, taught him how to read, taught him the Bible. and he grew up, and everything was in jumble in the South. This whole government was messed up, education messed up, the economy. We didn't have any money. Fortunately, in the South, you can grow food. You stick stuff in the ground, food grows up, and peanuts in particular, where he was. So he said, we need to get some commerce going here. And so you want to hear his prayer? Yeah. Dear Mr. Creator, excuse me, that means more than I thought it was going to. Dear Mr. Creator, show me the peanut. Amen. That's it. And within 10 days, he had all the chemical elements that make up a peanut plant and a peanut, 7 of them. The chemical names and all. He's writing it down. He didn't know this stuff. He's writing it down. And 300 different products you can make when you mix these up. And I've read that list a long time ago, and I can't even remember. It's so many that most of it doesn't sound like a peanut at all. But it comes from him and that prayer and the prayer answer. And so I thought, well, all right, I'll just pray the same thing. I usually, if I pray, you're going to explain to God everything about, he's dumb, you got to explain all. I got to explain out here. Here's what it is, God, and you don't know about this, but we want to do kind of dumb prayers. So I said, well, I'll just try one. So I just said, Dear Mr. Creator, just before our program this year, in March the 11th, in the afternoon, Dear Mr. Creator, show me the BAMB Crater. Amen. I don't want to make too much out of this, but I started getting ideas from one right to left, back and forth, write them down. That's what I felt like when I was doing that. I was saying, I can't even write this down. Don't go. And we'll do this with it, do this, and get all kinds of stuff. I'll give you a couple of examples, then I won't stop. The Voyager spacecraft. You're familiar with that? Launched in 1977. That's old technology. You know how old 1977 was? They put a little nuclear power plant in about the size like that. It produced heat. And that produced a little generation turned into electricity.
We can't hear you.
Can't hear? Okay. Let's see if I broke this. No, I didn't. Okay. All right. All right. Well, they put this little heat thing, launched it in 1977, straight out. And this year, 2026, in November, it's going to reach 1 light day from Earth. It's been going 38,000 miles an hour for 49 years. 38,000 miles an hour. Multiplied, and that shows you how far 1 light day is. And we talk about, oh, well, this thing's only 100 light years, and this one's 25 light years away. You know how far that is? And we got stuff coming out. And so we're saying, well, we can use the atomic bomb crater. They can see it. They can get in it and touch it. And we will have little classrooms and talk about these different things. And I'm going to stop there with the one last thing. I'm going to do this. What would you do? This is the question. I'm going to ask everybody the same question. I can't get that in there. Yeah, there you go. All right. What would you do if right now the sky lit up with a nuclear flash? Pray. Yeah, say, pray, Lord, I'm coming to see you in a minute, right? Well, couldn't survive it. Everybody gets killed in atomic bomb. No, we've looked at World War II. More people lived. Some people lived through both of those bombs. 211 people lived through both of them and lived to be 78 years old and did not have radiation sickness or anything. You got about 3 seconds, and now if it's in that direction, the wind is going to blow in, explode in, and just kill everybody between here and there, or explode in here, whatever. The glass is going to go. So if you are up, you're going to be shredded. And if you didn't die in the blast, you'd wish you had, because you got little, I got the glass, ow, that hurts this, ow, oh, ow. And you wish you died. So here's what we, the people that are dealing with this kind of stuff, concluded, how did those people in Japan survive? Some of them were right downtown in the bank vault under the ground zero. The guy in the bank vault, he didn't get hurt at all. Well, and most of them that survived did the same thing. They ducked. The sky lit up with a flash, duck. And that's what we're telling people. That's civil survival. You don't have time to go to Lowe's and buy something, build a bomb shelter, and collect. No, you got about 3 seconds before those windows blow in. Duck, get down below the windows. You can't really get below that window, that's down to the floor. But you can get down as low as you can get, or underneath here. Depends on where to come from. So you got about 3 seconds. Wait, put your thumbs in your ears, because that shock wave is a loud bam, and it will deafen you if you don't cover your eyes, and just get down. Pow! That thing blows. Wait just a little second till the dust kind of, just a little bit, and then go into an interior room, preferably a room with no windows, preferably a bathroom interior room with no windows. Get in there, shut the door, and you know how long you have to stay in there? 2 days. The intensity of the radiation is so high during that first day, it would kill you just to be walking outside. But it plummets, the radiation plummets like that, intensity. And then there's still 25%, that's too much. So wait another day and it gets down to about 5%. Well, I wouldn't recommend rolling around in 5% radiation, but hey, comparatively. And so you can come out, and when you do, don't rush, don't pick up stuff, particularly don't touch things with your fingers, because you get it in you and then that's terrible. And don't pick up boards and don't pick up stuff. And if you drive your car, drive slowly. If you can hold on yourself, just drive slowly, because the radiation's in the dust, not the air, and you'll kick up the dust. So that's our civil survival. You've got the description of the thing. We're early in the game to try to get it together. I'll take it. Can you see that? That's called an omni. It's a radio beacon, and it sends out a pulse, and it's or whatever it is. That's what the plane was flying toward over Mars Bluff. It was flying toward one of these, or by one. And that's one like Mars Bluff. So I'm going to stop right there. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Thank you.